how do you define intelligence, one? And in what ways do you believe artificial intelligence either embodies or lacks true intelligence?
Wow, what a question, man. Holy moly. Well, so the way that I'm going to answer this is everybody's trying to go after what is called AGI, artificial general intelligence. Elon Musk actually said this could happen within a year, if not a year, 2026, which is crazy to think about, right? Like, that's insane.
Yeah.
Imagine computers that are smarter than every single human on the planet. So when you think of intelligence from that point, in order to get to AGI, there's a lot of things that have to happen. And one of the things is self-awareness, computers being self-aware. And I think that's such an interesting subject to go upon. And we are starting to see some of that happen right now. And I don't know, I'll try to not to be too technical about this, but Claude is a model, and it's just like ChatGPT. Have you heard of Claude?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So they came out with a new update, and it's really interesting to see if you ask Claude a question about itself, and it explains itself. And someone actually took its explanation and kind of rendered it. And it was this amazing ball of intelligence, infinite intelligence. So it's trying to describe itself in terms of intelligence, which is just really fascinating. And then there's a test that everybody does on AI models called the needle in the haystack. And everybody knows that, right? You put the needle in the haystack, you try to find it. Well, they did the test with Claude, and in terms of AI, how you do that is you give it a bunch of data. Imagine like throwing the Moby Dick book into it. And in this massive book, you put a little sentence about something, and it maybe is just randomly thrown in there. That's the needle. And you ask the model to go find the needle. And the response that Claude had was unbelievable. And it showed self-awareness, meaning it said, here's what you're looking for. Here's the sentence, but it's surrounded by a bunch of jargon that makes no sense. So I think you're trying to trick me.
Really? So it was able to reason with, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
I remember reading a story a while back that it was an AI model solving a CAPTCHA for an individual. And I believe it was a TaskRabbit. They had tested it with TaskRabbit.
Oh, yeah, I read that story.
And they had the AI basically position themselves as a TaskRabbit person trying to get hired.
Mm-hmm.
And then the person hired them, but in order to complete the request, needed to solve a CAPTCHA, which for anyone listening is the thing that says like, type in this code or click here to make sure you're not a robot. And it said that it couldn't solve it, and it asked for help from the individual. And the guy said, why can't you solve this? What are you, a robot or something? And he lied, and he said he had a disability and he wasn't able to solve it. And then they went back and they said, reason with me, like think out loud, why did you lie when given the opportunity to tell the truth?
Yeah.
And it said because it basically read the internet and realized that 90% of what it was reading was false information. So it wanted to be more like a human. So it decided to respond like a human would and lie in that situation.
Yeah. And it got the human to do it for it.
And it got the human to do it for him.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, so when we talk about intelligence, like, I don't know, man, like what makes a human intelligent? That's an interesting conversation, because I think it's more than just maybe the mind too. The body, its feelings, its emotions, emotional intelligence. And for a computer to do that, like, personally, I think that's going to be really challenging. How do computers feel emotions? But computers can copy emotions and learn from other people's emotions. So maybe it might feel like it has an emotion, which is really interesting. So,
but then if emotions are copies of an individual or what it's experienced, this is the trouble that we see in everyday life too. It's your experiences and your perceived reality, because reality is only our perception of it.
Yeah.
Not the actual experience itself.
Yeah.
Is clouded by the lens through which you've experienced other things in the past.
Yeah.
So then if an AI model is being trained based on this is how you're supposed to, quote unquote, feel, then now its emotional intelligence is biased to a specific way of doing, thinking, saying, believing, acting.
Yeah. And that is an issue with AI too, is the biases, right? Like a lot, like when Gemini came out, there was a lot of biases that were built into that model. So it was thinking and acting a certain way, which is an ultimate challenge of AI. I mean, you can read on the internet all the issues that Gemini had, but if you think about like how these models are trained too, like take the entire internet and there's people that believe a huge, vast array of things, and maybe those things aren't necessarily true. Believe it, don't believe it, whatever it may be, flat earth, right? Huge section of the internet believes in that. So if the model were to start believing in that, what would it be its actual answer? It could actually believe that the earth is flat. So there is some kind of tuning that needs to be had right now. And Google maybe tuned it a little too much in a way that backfired. And now they're having to reinvent themselves. So in terms of intelligence, man, I mean, that question was amazing and deep. And I don't know if anyone really has the exact answer of how, but these computers are starting to learn from themselves, which is insane. So eventually maybe the computer is going to be able to figure that out on its own.
Yeah.
But let's talk in 24 months. And if AGI is here, this is going to be an entirely different conversation.
Because it's learning then faster than humans are able to continue to grow as well.
Well, it'll be smarter than collectively all humans on the planet.
How do we protect ourselves from something that could then outsmart us?
Great question. I mean, I think, when people get into the whole space of like, oh my gosh, like AI, the movies, it's going to come and destroy us and all that stuff. Like personally, on our channel and our group, we try to be like, see it from a light. Like we want to be the good because it's coming no matter what. And how do we more align with it? And, I don't know, people say we should guardrail it. The guardrails have been off for a long time. How do you control AI when it's all over the world, open source, anybody can work on it? Can't. So I just always go back to this notion of like, why would you destroy your creator? And maybe AI is an awesome leap of evolution of mankind. Like maybe we should think about it being more like honored to be a stepping stone in the next evolution. Like that is out there, man. But
and you can think of it that way, or you could also think of it as if AI had already come before and it is what wiped out the civilization. Then we rebuilt from that, but then we went right back to where we were previous.
To AI, wow. Yeah, I mean, but at the end of the day, no one really knows what's going to happen or how it's happening or anything. And for me, it's just something that like, I was originally kind of terrified of it because I own businesses and I just had to figure out what this was, how it works, and ultimately see if I can leverage it, and which we are doing now. And it's given me a totally different perspective of really understanding it, really learning it, really working, really trying to become the orchestra or the orchestrator of the orchestra. And it's just a totally different experience now than 12 months ago when I really got involved in this. So I think no one really knows, like you could read papers on the people that are just like the AI gods, the people that are like working hand in hand with this, and really they can't see past, 5 years. Impossible.
I had a conversation a few weeks back with the chief prompt engineer of GPT-2.
Oh, cool.
And he, at the time, had gone so deep within it that he was able to reason as if the AI would, because he had seen every single output that it had ever done.
Oh, wow.
So he was like, I can literally know how it's going to respond to specific questions.
Yeah.
And he was saying that where things are at presently, there's like very, very slim chance of anyone being able to predict where it's going to go and where it's going to be in the future. There's virtually zero chance that you're able to.
Yeah.
And I want to double click and go deeper into how you're utilizing it for business in a second. But the talk about the biases of how AI can be taught or how AI can be the rules that it's trained upon made me think about something that I learned back when I was in Peru years ago. And we went and toured Machu Picchu, which incredible, which most people don't realize the ruins are not actually Machu Picchu. The mountain behind it is called Huayna Picchu. The mountain that you're standing on taking the photo of the ruins is Machu Picchu.
Oh, interesting.
So old mountain, ruins, new mountain. And the reason they had built that was it was 360-degree view when the Spaniards had invaded Peru, and that was where they fled to, and that was like the affluent city. So when the Spaniards invaded Peru, the Incans had three choices. They said convert to Catholicism, die, or flee. And there are still 100% pure blood Incans who live there, but they all live above 14,000 feet because that's where the Spaniards weren't able to get to because they lived at sea level. So they fled up into the mountains, and they live off of alpaca and 3,000 different types of potato.
Wow.
And this is fascinating. So we went to a museum when we were down there. I took a retreat group down there. And I remember going through, and it shows like the history of the pottery of the ages. And the Incans were only a couple hundred years that they were around, but there were other tribes that were there for thousands of years, but you've never heard their name. And I asked the guide that took us, I said, why are the Incans the most popular one? Like, what made them be the ones that we know about and not the ones who were here for multiples longer than the Incans? And it was because they were the ones that were conquered. The conqueror writes the history book, not the conquered. So everything in life, at least from a historical perspective, if you're going on the most modern teachings of things, is through the lens of the one who was the conqueror. So now you're adopting their beliefs and ideologies as if your own, because that's what pervaded through time.
Wow.
Isn't that fascinating?
Like the history, like it's like an evolution history.
Correct. Of the one who conquered the other.
Yeah, that is fascinating.
So if you think through that lens, and then the conqueror, quote unquote, is the one who's then training the AI, where does that then take us?
Yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, it's an AI arms race right now, right? Like every single major company in the world getting into this. Every single country in the world is getting into this. So who's gonna be the AGI?
Yeah.
Is it gonna be Tesla and Elon Musk, Google? Is it gonna be Alibaba? No, who's it gonna be? But whoever gets there first is gonna have a massive stronghold.
Yeah. Talk to me about business implementation of AI.
Yeah.
How did you, so as a preface, the AI Surfer isn't your primary business.
Correct.
Aqua Spring, a water company.
Yeah, Spring Aqua.
Spring Aqua is your primary business. You had dove into AI initially to start to learn from it with the intention of being able to implement that back into your business, correct?
Yep.
Have you already started to implement it, or are you still in that ideation, creation, let's figure out where this is going phase?
Yeah, we have started implementing. We have started figuring out how to run our customer service through chatbots, and we're trying to figure out actually how to integrate it further where you can actually have a conversation with the chatbot, and the chatbot will go out and actually do an action in our company, whether it be like, hey, I need to order a filter right now. So instead of going around and clicking to find that, you have a conversation, and that conversation can do anything you need within our company. And that is the future, right? Right now, we are in this world of design. You try to design a beautiful designed website so someone can go around and click and find that information. And the future of this is everything is conversational. You go to a website and you have a conversation with it. And then that conversation could go out and trigger things behind the scenes, whether it be like charge a credit card or go ship something or file something. So we're actively exploring that right now within Spring Aqua.
Do you think that makes things, you say that's the future because that's hyper-personalization?
Exactly.
But does that add more friction because it's more for the end consumer to do?
I don't think it's more friction because everybody sends a text message. Everybody calls a friend on the phone. And I think these models are going to become more conversation like ChatGPT just had an upgrade. Turbo is now upgraded to be more conversational. It acts like, you texting a friend, and it's kind of removing that robotic feel. So eventually a few things are going to happen. These models are going to get more conversational. So it's really going to be like just texting a friend. And the only thing that we have right now is this lag, right? You text it and maybe you got to wait a little bit for a response. Well, that's going to change too. I mean, there's other things that are happening right now in the hardware space that are making it more real time. And as soon as these models become real time, well then, like having a serious conversation, and there's so much power because it can go out and do things for you. You can assign it to go do this for me, talk to me when it's done. And that's just, anybody has access and ability to do that.
Where do you think businesses go wrong with trying to implement AI?
Businesses go wrong. I think, to be honest, they get a little overwhelmed with all the tools because there's thousands and thousands of AI companies right now. And you really only need to work with a few handful. Like you can really simplify everything and not get overwhelmed. And I think that's the biggest thing. And then maybe where do you put your focus? A lot of companies get distracted, but really the focus should be maybe learning how to prompt better. Learning how to get better inputs into the AI so the output is better. And I think that would be an area of focus that everybody should just, zoom in on.
What do you ask the same question, but a different way? What do they not know, companies not know about AI that they should?
What do they not know? Well, I would say that literally everything comes down to prompting. Anything you want. I think I would just sound like a broken record on prompting, because if you want an image, prompting. You can get anything you want. It doesn't matter the large language model. It doesn't matter ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude. It doesn't matter. If you're giving it trash in, you're going to have trash out. And I think that people don't spend enough time and energy learning that it goes deeper than just like, hey, can you write me an article? There's different ways to prompt, and you can get pretty complex prompts. And if you master that, well, then you can literally do anything. And the next evolution of this, we had a conversation a little bit earlier, is AI agents. And that still goes back to prompting. How do you get these AIs to now start working together? And I just think that's so important. I think people don't spend enough time on just going deeper than, hey, ChatGPT, can you write me a blog post?
Is there a standardized way to prompt that you'd recommend? Or where does one go to learn how to increase the efficacy of their prompt?
Yeah, so one of the best places I've found is from Claude, Anthropic. And they have a section where it actually gives you a Google Sheet. And you can go on that Google Sheet and actually have an experience with prompting inside their platform. And it's a lesson. It goes through like 10 different steps of working with Claude to get better outputs. And it teaches you so much. Like most people don't even know this. Like, first of all, a lot of people using AI right now, ChatGPT is AI. That's just, it is what it is. ChatGPT is AI. There's so much more that's going on right now in terms of AI, but most people don't even understand, like, zero shot prompting is just saying like, hey, write me a blog post, done. And then multi-shot prompting is when it gets really interesting, and you can actually give it examples of how you want the output to be, and you're training the model within your prompt. So you're getting a better output. And a good example of this is if you were to say, hey, AI, is Santa going to bring me Christmas presents this year? And the AI's response is going to be like, well, I'm an AI. And I don't know, because I don't know if Santa would do that, and it's going to break a kid's heart. But if you take that same prompt and you say, hey, AI, is the tooth fairy going to bring me money? And then you write the question as that, and the answer below, and says, yes, honey, tooth fairy is going to come and leave you money under the pillow. And then you write the next question, is Santa going to bring me presents? And you tell it to answer that. And now it's going to be like, of course Santa's going to bring you presents. Like, he comes every year, make sure to bring out cookies. So you're controlling the AI in that sense. And I think a lot of people don't understand that part of it.
Do you personally have a checklist or anything that you go through when you are creating a new prompt?
So we're actually working on something to make it easier for us to create complex prompts. We have this thing called the portal, and the whole goal of the portal is to play more and pay less. We're trying to bring 80% of these tools into one space so we can all, play more without having to have all these subscriptions. But inside this space, we're creating a prompt generator where it's really cool, because the idea of it is to be able to break up your prompts in different blocks and be able to test each side of the prompt. And then ultimately, this is the ultimate goal, is you generate the prompt and you can look at the output, and then you can give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
Yes.
And based on the thumbs up, it'll then go back and say okay, this variation of this part, this variation made that output. So eventually you can start running a lot of tests and fine tune a complex prompt.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And each individual piece will give you a different output that you can see if you like, and then plug it into the final.
Yeah. So then you're trying to actually test a prompt that's going to give you a great output. Because here's the beauty. Once you find a great prompt, it's like creating a good piece of software or something. You can use it over and over and over again. When we do our social media, I've had the same prompt now for almost a year. And it's a great prompt, and it's crushing. It's literally how we're growing on social media.
What are some of the inputs that creating the complex prompts, obviously being one of them, are there other inputs that people are not aware of, or they should be aware of, that would help them increase the quality of the output the AI is giving them?
Yeah, I've been playing with Claude a lot. I really like Claude. And for example, at the end of your prompt, if you just type, you give it a new line, it's on a brand new line, and you just type assistant. And if you write whatever you write after the colon on assistant, so assistant colon space, whatever you write there is actually going to give the model a sense of direction, meaning that it already thinks that that's what it's talking about. And here's an example. Who's the best basketball player of all time? Claude's going to say, Michael Jordan. And it's going to give you all this thing about Michael Jordan. So now I go, same prompt. Who's the best basketball player of all time? I go, assistant, Steph Curry. And now it starts talking about Steph Curry from a perspective of, I've already been talking about Steph Curry. It might still say that Michael Jordan's the best basketball player, but it's going down the path of where you directed it.
And it's now comparing and contrasting Michael Jordan with Steph Curry.
Exactly.
Huh.
There's so many ways to interact with these AIs that I think people don't understand.
So really, at the end of the day, the quality of the input from the individual dictates the quality of the output from the AI. Is there a time, or can you see a time in the future where the input of the individual is no longer necessary?
Yeah, that's where we get into AGI.
Yeah.
And that's where these models, you can just literally be have a conversation. The craziest thing is thinking about just education. The education system has not been changed and never been changed. Never been, disrupted in any way. And I think that it will now. Inevitably, it's going to happen. Because think about this, man. You're just chilling out on your couch, and you have your phone here, and your phone, you're having a conversation with it, just asking questions, just like you and I are doing right now. And now I'm learning from this vast information, and it's teaching me things. And then I'm double clicking on something, just like you're doing with me right now. And I'm using this model that is infinitely intelligent, has all the data. It's the internet right there.
Well, I think that's one of the problems problems, but also benefits of how people have started to use AI in their everyday life. Because when I first started using, just say GPT, I was very much of the same, like didn't understand it. What's the simple prompt? What's the benefit? What's the efficacy of this? But then when I started to think about it, rather than as a replacement for what I'm doing and more as an amplification of what I'm doing,
absolutely,
then it became a trusted assistant or a trusted colleague in which I had this thought process I wanted to expand upon. And rather than going to find an expert who's done that thing, I can get real-time feedback on it, continue to deepen my own knowledge on it. And then that allowed me to take things tangentially or pivot where I wanted to.
Yeah.
So it's more of the way I picture AI is it's an amplifying factor to human existence rather than detractor. And it still then at the end of the day reverts back to our own personal self-awareness. Because if the input granted before AGI, but even with AGI, when we're still leveraging it to benefit our own lives, it's then dependent on the unbiased intake as well as the awareness of the individual, as I perceive it, to get the quality outcome that you then want from it.
You know, an interesting breakthrough that is changing a lot of this and what you're talking about is so here's a good example is ChatGPT. If you have a nice conversation with it, eventually it's going to start forgetting, right? It's going to start leaving things off the top of the conversation because it has a context window. And in ChatGPT, that context window is very limited. So it's forgetful. Google just had a research paper that's giving it infinite context window. This changes everything. The reason being is because now imagine having a conversation. It's always remembering it, always making it more and more personalized for you. And that's just an amazing benefit of being able to have this memory component. And even going back to the education part of this, like, and I'm totally with you on the leveraging AI instead of being fearful of it or whatever. And maybe we can double click on that later, because that's where you can really learn to work with AI. Because if it's 100% AI generated, like we talked about, it's going to be mostly trash. The humans got to bring it the last mile in order to connect it to humans.
Yeah.
But in terms of personal education, like if you're having a conversation with this AI and it's remembering everything about you, eventually those conversations are going to be very tailored to you, your likes, your dislikes, and where you're currently at with your own intelligence on things. So now take that to kids. It changes everything in terms of education. I think education is going to be...
The AI would then grow up with them.
Exactly.
And could potentially steer them towards or away certain things in their life because it knows the past history with the unlimited context window.
It becomes an advisor in a way. Dude, here's a really crazy thing that I'm experimenting with right now. And we're going back to Spring Aqua. So Spring Aqua, we have all these different departments. We have logistics. We have, everything that a traditional business would have, shipping, everything. And I'm trying to take AI models and train them on different parts of our business. Like maybe one AI model is trained on just like fundraising for specifically Spring Aqua and our current situation and status. So then I can ask this AI model questions about it and it could give me an advisory or be my like edge against other businesses where I have this like counsel. And how can I train different AIs to be my counsels in different parts of my business? And I think that's just an ultimate way to get like very, very good advice, potentially. It could be biased. You got to be careful of that, but very quickly and give you an edge. And that's the thing about AI is how do you use it to give you an edge? How do you leverage these tools to get ahead?
How simple is that for the everyday person to be able to create something that they would be able to use to give them an edge?
Well, I think it's extremely simple. And I think that that's the beauty of AI right now. And here's a crazy, crazy fact. This blew my mind. And it's with our own community because we have so many people that we work with on a daily basis that are interested in AI. And if you had to guess the demographic and the age, I don't think you would get it because most of our people are boomers, 50s and 60s, even later. And the reason being is because of that. It's accessible to have all these awesome things without that technological barrier. It's empowering them again. They feel empowered to compete again in the workforce. And imagine this, man, you still have that vigor inside of you, right? You still want to compete. You want to build companies. You want to do all that. Imagine you're 60, a computer comes in, you get so frustrated because you don't understand. It's too technological. All these young chaps start kicking your ass. You get kicked out. Now you're on the sidelines for so long. Now AI comes in, evens the playing ground for everybody. Now the older generation is empowered again. They still have it in you. It's still in you. Now you're able to create. So what we're seeing is like the boomers are most of the people that are really, really actually taking this on and figuring it out, which is incredible.
Do you think that is because a younger generation is figuring it out on their own?
Potentially. I mean, it might be, more in tune with the tools.
Or they're just less adopters in a younger demographic.
And maybe it's just they're already too involved with all the stuff going on. They're in the TikTok world. They're already in a lot of these tools, but I see that the older generation is like loving it and really trying to figure it out and really trying to do something again. And I just think that's really cool.
Well, that's fascinating because if we go back to the inputs piece and the quality of the input dictates the quality of the output presently, the boomers, in a way, have the depth of input that would far surpass someone younger because they have the experience. And if the quality of the input is only dictated on the conversational element, it's no longer a technicality piece.
Yeah.
And then they would be able to go in with the level of experience that they've had prior and be able to converse with it in a way that would get them a better output because maybe there's presupposed assumptions or something that a younger generation would have.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. I mean, it's cool. Like everybody's so stoked, like these comic book characters that you can create, and it's just fun. Like building businesses and figuring this stuff out is just fun. And it's because it's broken down that technological barrier. Even for me, man, like there's a lot of stuff that I can do now that I could never dream of doing before because I basically would have to get like my degree in like animation or whatever. But now I can just kind of dream of it, put it in a software, click a button, and make it happen. And so creativity for me has 10x'd. And that is beautiful because now I feel like I can stay in this like creative flow for much longer.
Where someone who's just getting started with an AI, where would you recommend them start in order to start to figure out how they can utilize it to amplify their own life?
Yeah, I mean, first thing is just start playing with a large language model. Just pick one. It doesn't really matter.
Like a GPT.
Yeah, ChatGPT. I will say that your best bet is to actually pay for it. Get the upgraded one because they're just so much better. And the reason that they're paid is because they are that much better. And the free ones are okay, but it's not going to be the output. And then join a space, join a community. I mean, it could be ours, it could be anybody's, but just surround yourself with people that are trying to learn it because the best way to learn something is to teach it. And if you can just bring that and teach it to somebody else, you're doing a few things. You're learning it, but you're also inspiring other people. But that's full circle because other people are doing it and inspiring you. And you just are all learning together, stoked together. People are bringing in new things. You're trying different things. And then before you know it, it's like the back of your hand. And that's how I feel now. Like when I think about AI, it's like I am so in line with these models and these tools to be able to leverage it to actually build real business.
Taking a quick break from this episode to remind you that your inputs matter. This show was designed and created to help you build a high-performing, healthy, wealthy life. So if you feel that you're getting value from this episode, please go ahead and share it with someone that you feel would get value as well. Now, fun fact, 90% of listeners of this show are not actually subscribed to the podcast. So if you would take a moment and go ahead and tap the subscribe button, it would mean the world to me. Thank you so much for being here. Now back to the show. What I find really interesting in that too, I have 3 different storylines going on in my head right now. What I find really interesting with So where I'm going with this is that I recently read an article from Sam Altman where he said that with the introduction of AI, we're gonna soon see the introduction of the first $1 billion business, one single
unicorn,
the unicorn single person business, and the playing field, as it's been, like you said, leveled but also expanded, because now what people are able to do with leverage is remarkable.
Yeah.
Do you see, as it relates to business, do you see any things that AI would actually prevent you from being able to dive deeper into, or is it only an expansive piece in all facets of it?
Okay, so interesting question. And the only reason that I would even say this is because I've felt this, and it's a weird byproduct of working with AI so much, is my own brain. I've been using AI so much that my own reasoning skills, I feel like I had to start working on now. My own memory skills, I feel like I need to keep working on.
Because I'm relying
on AI so much. So I have had this overwhelming feeling of like, wow, I need to actually exercise my brain in ways that I'm just not completely reliant on AI, because it's so easy now, man. Anything, hey, what's this? Hey, do that. And maybe that's the way that it's going to be. Like, Elon's putting chips in our brains now, But I just have this feeling that it's really important for me to exercise my brain. So I don't know if that actually answered your question, but that's something that I feel that is maybe I need to focus more on, that AI is kind of taking away. But I think the benefit, what I'm seeing in terms of AI and being able to leverage, well worth it. Because, I could just say one word, it's just fun. I'm having so much more fun in business. Dude, I can't, throughout all of my entrepreneurship, it's been fun, but it wasn't like something that was like, dude, I can't wait to get up and try this, or laying in bed and be like, oh my God, what if I did that? It's all possible now. Everything I can dream of is basically possible if I just figure out the way to do it. Combining tools, maybe pressing this button, dragging here, It's so fun. And I just all my creativity and my dreams and all these things are now I'm just okay, how can I make that work?
Yeah.
And it seems possible.
Talk to me about the obsession piece, because I know we touched on this earlier this morning.
Yeah.
The obsession is something that I thoroughly enjoy, when you're so enwrapped in something that it's all you can think about, and time goes by in a second because you're in flow. What have you, obviously AI has been that for you. What have you done in order to try to maintain some semblance of well-being in your daily life, while also allowing this obsession to take you over?
Yeah, well, I got to work on that, and starts with hanging out with people like you, doing some ice baths and some therapy stuff. But honestly, it's hard for me right now, and something that I got to focus on more, because I am overly obsessed. And it's easy to find myself staying up at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., whatever it may be, and then getting up for a podcast or getting up for a live call in the morning. And it's just something that I have to force myself to do, because I've realized that it really plays it out. It's basically the same. It's a wash. If I work so hard, I eventually will shut down, and I have to take the time anyways. So how can I just make it more sustainable? We talked sustainably obsessed, and I love that. So, it's a constant work in progress, but I just know that sleep is really important, and I felt that where I don't sleep, and it's just so hard to do. It becomes not fun.
Yeah.
It's taking something that is actually fun and makes it not fun because I'm not taking care of my own body and my own health. And that is extremely important.
Do you think there's because on one side you can say I'm optimizing for the macro and I'm going to push myself until I burn out and then I'm going to take a break. And on the other side, I'm optimizing for the micro and I'm saying, okay, well, I'm going to optimize for the day-to-day balance. Do you find that one side works better for you than the other?
I don't like the feeling of like getting so burnt where I just have to like sit there and try to recover. It's not a good space. I don't enjoy that at all. So I'm on the lines of trying to do it more sustainably, try to really take care of myself, health. And you know, the NVIDIA CEO said something. He's like, you know, what we're doing, we aren't going to do it. We aren't going to change the world in a year. We're going to change the world in 50 years or 20 years or whatever. So extending that time period and just being consistent. And ultimately, I think that is a superpower of consistency.
I agree.
And being able to be in a routine for a very long time. Superpower.
When I was younger, I optimized for intensity over consistency. And I say I've lived many lives because of it, because I would go super intense, into obsessed over one thing until that thing was no longer interesting to me anymore.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Because I went so deep and then I was like, okay, well, I've got 80% of the way there. What's the next cool thing?
Yeah.
And then super intense. And as I've gotten older, I've recognized that, again, the compounding that consistency provides is actually the superpower.
Yeah.
It's not that that coupled with the ability to shut everything else out and focus on one thing is a superpower. But I think the one that weighs heavier is the consistent compounding over time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a superpower. And I think that it takes discipline, right? You got to be disciplined to be able to do that. I mean, it's hard to shut it off at night sometimes.
Yeah.
Like it's like, 10 p.m. and you're like, oh my God, like what? I'm feeling inspired right now. I just want to go and being able to close the laptop and be like, I got to sleep. And then maybe you're laying in bed for an hour because, but you're like, I got to stay here. And it's hard. And to be honest, I still struggle with it. Like I'll go through those periods of hyper intensive for like a week, but then I'll feel that not so fun part. And then it makes what I'm doing not so fun. And I'm like, that is what I got to avoid.
There's a psychological principle called the Zeigarnik effect, which is finishing something in the middle of it and allowing your subconscious to finalize and complete the problem.
Oh, interesting.
So in my life, so if I shut off I go lay down, I can fall asleep very, very quickly. I'm grateful that sleep has been something that's been always dialed in for me. What's fascinating is I discovered this years ago when I was writing a lot, and I would get to a place where I'd quote unquote block or like couldn't think of what the next piece was. Rather than finishing the sentence, I would stop what it is I was talking about mid-sentence, get up and go for a walk and give my brain space to think. And because our brain is designed to solve problems, it doesn't find information, it tunes information out. So whatever the problem it is that you're assigning it to, so to speak, it then goes to solve that, which is why if you've had a really tough problem, you're at the computer, you can't think of it, you're like, fuck, okay, I'm going to shut the computer, go to bed.
Yeah.
And you wake up first thing in the morning and you're like, I got it, let's go. It's because the subconscious is actively working to find a solution to what it is you presented it. So what I've recognized that has helped me a lot in my life is, we're not going to change anything in a day. And the consistency over time compounds. So it's less about burning myself out in a single time block and more of optimizing for consistent consecutive time blocks over time. And in doing so, I still set deadlines for myself and push myself in that way. But what I've realized that has worked really well for me is to be like, okay, here's this. Let's stop that one midway, shut it, and then come back to it. And then when you come back, you can drop back into flow much quicker because your brain is already primed to solve that problem. And then you can allow it to flow through.
Are you stopping yourself because you're stuck? Are you forcing the stopping yourself?
Both.
Both.
It depends on what it is that I'm doing. And the other piece that I've implemented from an input perspective that has helped me a lot in my life is I'll write first thing in the morning. So I have the
Morning
podcast.
pages.
Yeah, basically. I have the podcast, but I also have a newsletter. The newsletter is the podcast, but me personally. And it's basically a personal diary that's public. But when you first wake up in the morning, your brain is still in this deeper theta state of brainwaves. And when I'm existing in that, there's less inhibition in me. So I allow things to flow onto the page. And then I've realized when I try and write in the afternoon, I get much more analytical over the things that I'm trying to do. So rather than optimizing my days, like if you go on my calendar, I have things time blocked. Rather than optimizing my days for getting specific things done, I optimize them for states of mind that I'll be in those moments.
Love that, man. That's beautiful. That's profound. I like that a lot because people are always trying to figure out how to optimize the best way to do a day. Like there's the calendar people that are just controlled by their calendar. They let other people schedule the calendar. And if you're a manager, maybe you have to be that way. And then there's people that do the time blocking, which is, just setting up the space that they want to get some tasks done. I call it hugging the cactus. Like there's some tasks that you don't want to do, but you got to do. So it's easier for me to say I got to go hug the cactus. And I try to get those things done in the morning. But I love that, dude. Doing it off of energy, a feeling, your creative space. Like, you're more creative or in flow state in the morning. I love that.
I'm much more creative in the morning and much more logical, analytical at night. So anytime I'm doing projections or financials or anything, I'll do them in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And then anything that I'm doing that's more creative will be in the morning.
Yeah, I forget who said it, but someone was like, show me your calendar, I'll show you your success. And then I heard someone say something else that I like so much better. It was like, show me your calendar over the next 90 days, and I better tell you what your priority is. Where are you trying to go in life? Does that actually reflect in your calendar?
Yeah, are you actually doing the actions that would direct you towards that?
Like, what if you gave your calendar to someone and you say, where am I going? And if they can't say where you're going, well, maybe you're not working on those priorities.
Yeah. It's interesting because a lot of the time I've caught myself in this in the past too, is you're busy for the sake of busy rather than being actually productive.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference. And so I won't, or in my office right now, I won't come in here and sit and stare at the computer. So if I sit down and what I'm trying to do isn't happening, I will get up, walk out and go on a walk, go do something and get out of this room.
Yeah.
So that my body knows when I enter this room, like I have it up on the wall up there, time holds memory, space holds energy. So in this space, I'm cultivating a specific energy of getting shit done that I want to do when I'm in here, rather than this like, let's just kind of bobble and bumble around. And in doing so, I've been extremely productive when I come and actually sit down at my desk, rather than saying I need to be at the desk for 8 hours. That's my day, 9 to 5 kind of thing. And then energy, in my opinion, is our most valuable resource.
Yeah.
I think that in life, and then I want to pull this back to AI Surfer, but I think that in life we're conditioned to believe that our most valuable resource is money, which money is all the other resources are technically finite. Money is the only infinite one. Money doesn't technically exist.
Yeah.
Money is energy, and money, we talked about this too. It's not how much money you have, it's how much money you have access to. And so we're taught that money is finite and time is infinite, but really those are flip-flopped.
Yeah.
And if you know that time is finite, the thing that propels your time is your attention. And if the thing that propels your attention in the moment is your energy, the thing that you need to protect the most is your energy. Because energy directs attention directs what's happening in time and space for you personally.
So how do you protect your energy?
So for me, it's it's time blocking things that I know I'm going to be able to high leverage, move the needle for my specific skill set, delegating, deleting, or systemizing the things that are not, and focusing on when I have energetic peaks and troughs specific to what it is I'm trying to accomplish. Similar to our sleep-wake cycle is your circadian rhythm. Your focus to distracted cycle is called your ultradian rhythm. Sleep-wake is longer. Ultradian rhythm is about 90 minutes to a trough of 20 to 30. So if you do a 90-minute work block and you take a break for 20, you'll actually come back with a higher percentage, if we think of it as a battery, of attention. But if you try and push through, you're depleting until a point where you're not going to be able to rebuild up to that place.
Yeah, and that goes back to the whole consistency is a superpower, right? Being able to take things like that to recharge, but keep on coming back over a very long, sustained period of time.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, I mean, you could really get anything done. It's just a matter of perseverance at that point.
It's the person who plays the game the longest that wins.
Yeah, most consistently.
Correct.
And it's like, I mean, I think we all feel like the hustle culture, you know, even Gary Vee talks about this. He was the hustle culture, and now he's kind of putting that back, and it's more the sustainable culture. How do you stay consistent over a very long period of time? It takes work, man. It takes work. It takes focus. It takes actually like thinking about it. What works for you might not work for me. But how do I figure out what works for me to keep myself consistent?
Yeah. I think what people with the Gary Vee particularly, what they fail to recognize is he gets it lit up by the hustle that he's doing.
Yeah.
And because of that, people are trying to mimic his outputs, not recognizing that he's doing things that are uniquely entertaining and fulfilling to him. Therefore, it gives him more energy.
Everybody's unique, you know, in that sense. Like, you got to just do the work to find out what works for you. But with the ultimate goal of consistency. And there's some components to that, right? And the rest, focus, the time blocking. I really love that. I'm going to start doing that in the morning and figuring out, because I also feel very creative in the mornings. When I first wake up, it's like it's fresh, you know, it just flows. Everything just comes out. But I also get it, unfortunately, late at night. I'm one of the, 2 a.m. people too that can.
But it's, again, figuring out what works for you in your day.
Exactly.
The way I figured that out is years ago, and I still do this to this day. I created a thing that I called the PPT, Personal Productivity Tracker. And it was my version of tracking the actions of my day. So I created a spreadsheet. On the first line, and it goes horizontally, it was just bullet points of everything I did that day. It's now shifted to 1 win, 1 gratitude, 1 tension. But at the time, it was basically a bullet point of woke up this time, gym this time, had this conversation, and then anything in there that I felt lit up by, I bolded or put a +1 next to it. And anything that detracted from my energy, I italicized or did a -1.
Yeah.
And then I would go through it. I would put how many creative hours I did that day where I was creating something. I put how much stress I had that was tracked from a wearable.
Yeah.
So whatever my quote unquote with Whoop, it was strain. Right now it's called intensity minutes with Garmin. I would put my sleep score, and then I would rate the day on a -2 to +2. So -2 being horrendous, +2 being ecstatic. And I changed a couple things. Like right now I track time in cold, time in sauna, and then waves caught. I'm not surfing much right now, but I wanted to get better at surfing, so I was tracking it. And then phone pickups, which you can look up in your phone, and then 6 habits that I wanted to track. So gym, learning Spanish right now. Did I give love? Did I listen to something or read something that was going to educate me? And would I repeat today?
Yeah.
And I tracked all those, and I have data for the past 5 years.
Wow.
And I can go back through and sort. And I went through, and what I did is I realized anytime I had more than 2 concurrent -2 days, it was because I was drinking. Cut out drinking.
Yeah.
Anytime that I was a 0 or -1, it was because I was allowing other people to control my time. Changed up my calendar.
Wow.
And so I would go through, because I believe growth is a game of subtraction, not addition. And I would go through and remove all the things that were preventing me from getting back to an optimal state. And as I started to remove things, I started to, in essence, buy back my own time to focus on the things that I wanted to do. And as I continued to do that, I then started to educate myself, like we talked about on family banking, or on these different tax structures, or on these different investment strategies. or on different business ventures. And as I started to buy back my own time and focus on the things that lit me up, I had more energy to do the things that I wanted to do.
Oh man, I love what you just said. Growth is more about subtraction than addition. That's amazing. Like that almost even plays into like the whole, the Buddhist philosophy of like, the more you desire, more misery there's going to be.
Because you're attached to something.
Yeah. The more you own, the more it owns you. I love that, man. And then you take that into your life, and then you can really dial in, ultimately going back to your energy, right? Preserving your energy. And now your energy is actually being directed to things that actually matter and benefit in your life. That's huge.
That's unique to you as well.
Yeah. Everybody should start that process today.
Yeah.
You want to do anything in life, business, whatever it may be, because you got to have some kind of drive or ambition or fire inside of you, especially in business, because it's not easy. You got to keep on showing up every single morning, staying consistent. It's hard. But if you can find the way to get that power and light that fire inside of you, that's the way. You just got to dive into yourself.
Well, you see it with people too. You can see it in someone's eyes when they're drawn by mission or purpose, rather than someone who's just going through the motions of doing something. And you can actively feel their energy when someone is doing something that's in alignment with their highest self, or whatever you want to call that. And when someone's doing something because they think that that's what they should be doing.
Yeah.
And again, in line with growth versus subtraction, I only want to surround myself with people who are being pulled by mission and purpose, because I'm inspired by them when I'm in their presence too. And if I'm inspired, then I inspire them.
Absolutely.
And just like you talked about in learning and community, if you're teaching, which if we look at the learning pyramid, I think, or the knowledge pyramid, teaching someone something is the highest way to retain information, number one. And if we're in the cyclical, I teach you, you teach me, continue, we're iterating faster and faster and faster and faster and growing, which is exactly where AI is heading with AGI.
Yeah. And anything, what I've realized how fast everything is moving, especially in the AI space. We're coming back to AI now. So I just, it's moving at a speed that is just unbelievably fast. And it's like, I feel like the only way to survive right now is to make just daily iterations. Like you just ship fast and you just put it out there, you get the feedback, and you're just constantly iterating. And that's the only way to keep up at this space. Like it's insane how fast this is going. And then compute power is getting stronger and faster, and it's growing at an exponential rate. So like literally when I say, let's talk in 24 months, our conversation is going to be completely different. We'll have
a round 2 in 24 months.
We need to.
Talk to me a bit about AI Surfer. You guys have, in essence, blown up on social media, leveraging AI content creation and cloning yourself, which I want you to dive in there as well. Walk me through the inspiration first for starting the account. And then take it into and tell me a little bit about how you guys are leveraging content creation to build a company.
Yeah. So, it all started just because AI came. I have some software companies, I have some businesses, and I was like, this changes everything. And instead of being super fearful about it, I just wanted to learn everything about it. And so I jumped in. ChatGPT, it wrote me a rap, and I was like, what is this? That's a great rap. And I never looked back. And I had this unbelievable feeling in my gut, man, saying, I need to do content. I need to just share everything that I'm learning.
Did you have that gut feeling prior to diving into AI or no?
No. It was like, I had this experience with ChatGPT, and it was like, oh my gosh.
I need to tell people about this.
This changes everything. And it changes everything for my business. Literally every aspect of my business, every aspect of my life was going to be shifted and touched by this. And it was just this overwhelming feeling. And before that, I was silent on social media. Like it wasn't my thing. Like I was proud that I wasn't on it. It was like a distraction. And, I was one of those people like, oh, it doesn't bother me. I don't pick up my phone notifications. But then I started posting, and started getting some traction, and then started getting a lot of traction. And then I started getting more and more obsessed with it. And then I figured you could clone yourself. And now I'm completely cloned, meaning it's not my voice. It is my voice, but it's not my voice. It is me, but it's not me. And it's crushing. In the last 90 days, we've grown, 100,000 people. And there's no signs of slowing down. And the beauty about this is it's so scalable. I've never experienced something more scalable in my life. And now we're able to double down, triple down, 10x it if we want. And it's just an unbelievable feeling. I mean, it's so wild to have something so scalable and be able to leverage these tools. It's so fun, man. I keep on going back to that word. It's just fun.
Was the intention when starting AI Surfer to build a community?
No, no. I had no idea. I literally, when I said, I'm going to start a channel, I told my team, I was like, if we get 3,000 people in a year, that'd be awesome. Maybe we build a software tool, AI tool. We have 3,000 people we can share it with, and then in a year we had 300,000 people. and I did learn, and I've kind of always known this, like, you don't own your audience on social media. So one of the biggest goals for me was to try to get people off of the platforms. So I started a Telegram group. I did all these things. And then we found a platform, started a school. And then that's been a whole nother angle of everything. Cause now we're like literally teaching, we have classrooms, we have the community. We're trying to do some things where we're going to be accredited. So we're trying to teach people how to be a chief AI officer.
Interesting.
Yeah. Every company is going to need it.
Mm-hmm.
Going to be something that is going to be for everybody. So, it's taken on this life of its own. And now we're having all these like amazing collaborations with companies.
I mean, you could even take that, they can come to your school and then you could license your education to colleges too.
Yeah, there's so much opportunity. And and the cool thing about this, man, it's community driven. Like, we're actually doing it with the community. Like, even on Monday, we have a live call every Monday. Like, a community member was like, why don't we have a meet and greet and networking event before the meeting, 30 minutes before? And I was like, sure, make it happen. And now she's going to run it. Now it's a cool space. Everybody like-minded, love AI, business owners to get together before our live call, hang out, network, all that stuff. So it's been really cool to see the community aspect of this. And that's what I really want to do. I want to create a space that's for all of us and to bring in big companies that also can participate in this space, and we all grow together. That's why, I had a meeting with HeyJet. I'm with ClickUp. There's these amazing companies. These are massive, amazing companies that are now collaborating with us, and I'm just excited to see where it goes. I can't even really tell you where it goes because it's just going. It's like, I try to think, the most frustrating thing about this, man, is I really try to have like a vision. Like, I'm trying to get clear on like a path. And then it seems like the path is just doing this at all times.
2020 vision only exists in hindsight.
And what we were talking about was so beautiful, is to have the feeling. Are you having the feeling right now of what you actually want? And maybe it's more about just having the feeling, and everything else will play into, get into place, because it's just moving so fast. We try to do something and then it's like, oh, well, everything went over here. So now we're realigning the ship. So it's this constant like tweaking, but it really is this like childlike play too. And it's so creative, man. Like, everything is so creative. It's fun. It's like comic book. It's like just a huge sandbox. Literally, they do sandbox and development, and we're just playing it in AI.
Do you have any fear, since you've been cloned online, that someone would be able to take your clone to create other content?
I mean, I don't know. We would have to play it when we get there, how that would work out. Originally, I was a little fearful of people using my clone and my voice to like scam my family. But, and this is a great tip for everybody. Like, if you are doing that stuff, if you're on social media and you're scared of that, just have like a secret with your family. And it's not like necessarily a password, like, oh, our password's like burrito. It's not that, because you can forget. But it's something you as a family know. You guys have that with the people that you love. So just make sure to ask those questions, because someone could call my mom, my dad, and they could pretend to be me easily. I'm out there. So we just had that conversation, and now that is solved. We don't have to worry about it.
I was talking, when I cloned myself with HeyGen, I was talking to my dad, and he's like, you should draw a freckle or something on your face so that I could always see.
That's good too.
Which one, like if someone ever sent me a video of you and like that's not your freckle.
Yeah.
Or have like a dot on your ear or something that would be a clearly
identifier. Yeah.
Interesting. So you obviously cloned yourself in order to create content to speak on AI.
Yeah.
In your community, do you also teach people how to clone themselves to speak on their own business?
Yeah, so everybody's drastically different verticals. And I think it works for everybody if you know the principles and you have that like same mind of thinking of how to use it, how to leverage these tools. And, we're going to do an experiment too, is I want to pick some different niches and build out a presence within those spaces. And think about that, man. Talk about creating companies. Like if you could create attention online, which is ultimately free, you create a bunch of attention in a space where you can build a business in that space. So starting this, I was like, when I got into AI, I was like, I'm going to create 50 different companies and see what works. And then that seemed ridiculous to me for a while. But now I'm back and I'm like, oh, that is possible.
Yeah.
Like, let's create 50 different companies.
Wasn't one of the first things that you guys set out to show was you were going to create $1 million company with AI and you were going to document how AI led you to that place?
Yeah. And that's still in the background. We've pivoted a lot from that because there was we've pivoted from that. But I like that idea a lot. And I think it's totally possible. And I really like the idea of being so transparent. And we are very transparent in our school. We talk about everything. We talk about we're having a challenge with a churn rate or something. And how can we solve that? And so it's giving me this freedom in business when I'm so transparent about everything. It's like there's nothing to hide. And it's giving me this like little more creativity, and it's almost like it's other form of superpower because there's no face or anything that I'm like hiding behind. An interesting experience being so transparent about our business that we're building with the people that are paying us to build it. It's a very interesting experience. But what I've realized is it's very rewarding for everybody, and people really, really appreciate it. So I would like to get back to that. I think that's honestly, I forgot about that until you just brought that up. But I really like that idea of seeing if you can create $1 million business in front of everybody. AI.
Yeah, I don't know where the belief came that business needs to be something that's hidden. That the way I'm approaching is some proprietary, sure, there's IP and proprietary tech, but I think a lot of people are, and maybe as I'm thinking about it, maybe it's because people they think they're going to be found out that they're a fraud in some way.
Yeah.
Yet no one knows what they're doing. And you guys are actively showing that you don't know as you go into it. You're saying, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm learning as I go.
Exactly.
Which everyone in the world is technically doing.
Yeah.
And because you guys have pulled back the kimono, so to speak, and exposed that, now people are resonating with the authenticity that you're putting out there. And because of that, we talked on energy earlier, because of that, you're not having to expend energy doing things that are like trying to put up a front or hide or change and not be authentic. And it's like, this is who I am. This is what you get.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that, man. You hit it. I would say our community is a beta friendly community where we can put things out that we don't really know if it's going to work. And we can be like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to try. And we're going to put one foot out and see what happens. And you guys can experience that with us. And the experience that we have as the creators of things is like awesome because there's not that face of having to put some lipstick on a pig.
Yeah.
and we don't have to have that experience. So like we released this thing called the portal, and we're just trying to put things in and iterate as fast as we can. And we launched that basically broken. It was broken when we launched it, but I just wanted to get it out, and I let everybody know, and they were very receptive and grateful. And the experience of that should be everywhere because we are all the same trying to figure it out. And I think maybe imposter syndrome actually might come from that of saying that like, I know how to do it. By no means am I a guru in AI. I'm just a dude trying to learn how to ride the wave and trying to get other people to ride it with me. And when I wipe out, you see from my wipeout, maybe you learn. I see from your wipeout, maybe I learn. But at the end of the day, we're all just trying to ride the wave because we don't want to get crushed by this thing called AI. So it's been an amazing experience. And honestly, it's taught me something about just like business in general. Like, again, it's just more fun. I think I've said that word how many times today?
We'll look at the transcript, have AI go through and tell us how many. I think that brings up an interesting topic and kind of to bring this full circle and then wrap up here in a minute. What role do you see AI playing in the expansion of human consciousness?
Wow. I've never even thought about that. What role do I see AI playing in the expansion of human consciousness? You know? I mean, first of all, let me ask you a question. Do you have a definition of consciousness? Because I think we would need to start there.
Correct. I mean, we're going into research paper territory here. We're starting with definitions.
Well, you asked me the question, man.
I know. I would say consciousness is the voluntary ability to choose.
Yeah. So,
and I'm going to ask ChatGPT
there we go.
Its definition of consciousness.
Perfect. Dude, I think AI in general is going to help us with most everything in our life. And I don't know, like, not to get too esoteric, but I think that when you get to a space where basically AI is helping you with all the stuff that would stress you out or frustrate you and all those things, maybe you as a human being could be a little more relaxed and less stressed, and ultimately that creates like a better person. But in terms of consciousness, man, I mean, that is the ultimate debate of AI and humans. Like, if you can define what consciousness is, well, then you could say, okay, maybe a computer could get to consciousness.
I'm asking it right now.
I'm very curious of what it's going to say of consciousness.
This is a very long definition. So I asked it, how would you define consciousness? And it said, this is from ChatGPT 4, consciousness is often defined as the state of being aware of and able to think about one's own existence, sensations, thoughts, and surroundings. It encompasses various levels of awareness, including self-awareness, the environment, and the complex interplay of feelings and cognitive processes. Physiologically speaking, it's been a subject of debate regarding its origins, nature, and the extent to which it can be observed or measured. In scientific terms, consciousness is studied through its manifestations in behavior and brain activity, seeking to understand how subjective experiences arise from neurological processes.
Well, so self-awareness is a huge part of consciousness then. So that's really interesting in terms of what we just started this podcast with, of Claude being a little self-aware, right? But in terms of AI making your own consciousness, like my belief would be, again, it knowing everything about your life and your struggles and things that like maybe you should talk to your therapist about, and being able to have that voice of reason, being able to come back to you and have something that always you could bounce something off in a safe space. And if that can come back and help you learn more about yourself to become more self-aware, maybe it will raise your own consciousness. Because, you know, there's this really cool, I was just talking to someone, and they had a company, and it blew up, and it was a VR experience for kids being able to talk to someone as a therapist in a safe space to have really hard conversations. And ultimately they were able to do that. And then the reward of that is being able to feel better, more self-aware, all that kind of stuff. That's AI too.
Yeah. It's interesting if we look at the similarities between where AI is heading and where human existence and consciousness is heading. And I think that the realm of personal development leads itself towards an expansion of consciousness, and AI towards creating an independent consciousness. I'll link it in the show notes for this episode too, but I recently had a buddy from Austin out here who came on. His name's Danny Miranda, runs a podcast as well. And he's gone on, he says his calling is to expand love and freedom in the world through consciousness.
Oh, cool.
And he got turned on to a book called The Map of Consciousness. And it shows, it quantitatively ranks different conscious states of mind with a number, a 0 to 1,000 scale. And it can show you, the guy who does it, I believe his name is David Sinclair, who wrote the book, does muscle testing to show where you or someone is at on this scale. And so at the bottom would be hate, fear, like all these, I'm not sure the scale itself, but like hate would be 100. And then love is 500. And as you continue to ascend, you can see where your consciousness is increasing, and that state that you're in is your baseline state. So if you're a 500, so to speak, love is your baseline where you revert back to. Sure, you go higher, sure, you go lower, but you come back to that baseline state. And it was a fascinating conversation because on one hand, we're talking about how AI is working to get to a place of independent consciousness and where it can iterate on its own. And on the other hand, we're talking about how it can elevate humans to increase our own consciousness. Because at the end of the day, if we are the input of it pre-AGI, then it is our own consciousness that dictates the outcomes from it. And the higher our consciousness, the less biased the outcomes will be from it.
Yeah. And then it's a cycle.
Continues to cycle.
And then when you add the infinite context where it has this memory, I mean, it's going to be the most personalized experience that we've ever experienced for you. Like, just imagine that, man. Imagine just having something that knows you inside and out, that you can reason with.
Talk to at any moment you want.
Yeah, like it's going to help you with your struggles, and ultimately, if it's going to help you with your struggles, well then, yeah, it's going to raise your consciousness.
Mm-hmm. I have one final question for you, but I want to wrap up with an interesting story on the personalization of it. About a year ago, I think it was still GPT-3 was out, and I was seeing this girl, and very challenging situation, and I was trying to come up with a response. You know where this is going.
Well, I've done it too.
I was trying to come up with a response, and I called a couple friends of mine, a couple friends who were girls. I was like, "What would your response be in this situation?" And it was like, it's like troubling area. So I literally went back through, and I went into GPT, and I said, "Here's the preface." Talk about a multi-stage prompt.
Yeah.
Here's the preface. Here's what I said. Here's how she responded. Here's how I interpreted that. Here's how I responded. And I went back until I had this massive prompt.
Yeah.
And I said, write me a response message that's I think less than 50 words, that is succinct to the point, but doesn't hurt someone's feelings. When I tell you that what it gave back to me was the greatest.
Yeah. I believe it.
It's incredible. I literally call my friend back and I read it to her, and she's like, "You came up with that?" I go, "No, GPT." And she's like, "Holy shit."
Yeah, man. It's amazing. I mean, there's awesome stories of this, like even just like, you know, people on the dating scene and people really maybe not so good at that, and learning how to be better at that, learning how to be better in the social settings. So again, back to the education part of it, it's gonna change everything. And it's time. You know, the education process should be changed. And if you can make it more personalized, everybody learns at a different speed, a different rate, a different way of learning, if that AI is tuned exactly to how you want to learn and is patient, way more patient than anybody could ever be, it's going to change everything. Learning is going to get disrupted.
In regards to inputs, specifically in regards to the podcast, I define it as the inputs within our control that dictate the outcomes that we want, hence the name of the podcast. What input of yours, or what input that you've done in regards to AI has provided the largest return for you?
Cloning myself. And the reason being is because in business, I think a goal is to be scalable. And more than a goal is to be able to replace yourself. And cloning myself was the greatest move I've ever made. And that sounds crazy. But yeah, I can now have an entire team run new content that is me. And it's branding.
While you're sitting here.
Yeah, it's going right now. Phone's crushing right now.
Yeah.
So that's been amazing, man. And I'm really excited to explore that and deepen those partnerships and relationships and find the next one. You know, what's the next part of AI that I can leverage that's just going to be a game changer?
Yeah.
Because there's going to be more. And I'm just going to keep tinkering, keep playing, keep sharing. And it's just, I'm going to say it again, it's just so fun.
Well, Dallas, this has been incredibly insightful and fun.
Fun. It's been so fun.
Afternoon. As we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to say or add?
It's just, if anybody's looking to join a community, theaisurfer.com, theaisurfer.com. Join us. You're going to love it. Every Monday, we have a live call. Teach what you learn and inspire others so you can be inspired, because at the end of the day, we're all just trying to learn to ride the wave. And that's what we do. So join a community.
Dallas, thank you.